Hi, everybody. Welcome to Core Pursuit. Thanks for joining us, whether you're on the live webcast or joining us from Facebook. I'm really excited today. We've got some great information to share with you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Core Pursuit. Thanks for joining us, whether you're on the live webcast or joining us from Facebook. I'm really excited today. We got some great information. Sorry about that. So joining us today is Slinn from Avalon Empowerment, and some of you may know her from the AYP weekend. I'm really excited to have you, Laura, so thanks for coming. I'm going to toss it right to you because I know that we got a lot of information, and hopefully everybody enjoys.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. As Rob said, my name's Laura Slinn, and I'm with Avalon Empowerment. We are happy and proud partners and affiliates with Kathleen Black and Core Pursuit in terms of bringing some of the tools of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and all of the other modalities we work with, and bringing that into Kathleen's camp. And I know that so many people have been exposed to some of these concepts with Kathleen already. So some of this will be review, and then I think we'll really open up to some of our favorite concepts and in a bigger, more powerful way too. So we'll get started today. When Rob and I were just chatting about what topics would be of value, we were tossing around some ideas, and we both agreed that talking about responsibility, and you'll see on the screen, we spell that response-ability, is some of the biggest game-changing concepts that we could talk about. So when we talk about responsibility, what we're really talking about is our ability to respond to anything that's going on in our life. So I'm going to start with this very simple little equation. It says E plus R equals O. So what does that mean? Well, below you'll see event plus response equals outcome. So that says that any event that happens, it's the combination of the event plus how we respond to the event that determines the outcome. Now, this is what most of us believe anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and say I think that actually we put a lot of emphasis on the event being the thing that causes the outcome versus our response to the event. And I was thinking of examples I could use while I was at the dentist office with my son yesterday. He had some serious dental work going on, and I was sitting in the waiting room with the baby. And as I was sitting there, there was a little girl who was playing with a toy, and she had this little toy ball. She was probably about 3, maybe 3.5 years old. And she dropped the toy behind the doors. There's double doors that lead into the office. And she dropped the toy behind the doors, and her mom was standing at the front desk, I guess, settling up for her other children. And the little girl went behind the door to try to get the toy, and she wound up getting her fingers stuck in the door because she was reaching around the other side to grab this toy. And she started crying. What happened next was complete chaos, complete mayhem in the dental office. There had to have been about 8 other children sitting waiting, but mom turned around and saw her little girl crying, and the mom freaked out, which I can totally appreciate. I mean, I'm a mother. Her child was in pain, but she starts screaming and yelling and shrieking at the top of her lungs. The little girl starts screaming louder. All of the children in the office start screaming. An older woman sitting next to me, I think the grandmother of a child, jumped up to try to help, and she had her hand on the door, and then the mom started screaming at her. And anyway, finally, I couldn't do anything. I was holding my baby, but a gentleman jumps up, pushes the door open a little bit more. The girl's hand comes out. They get her some ice packs, and after some craziness going back and forth, the mom started screaming at people who were jumping up trying to help. And that's when I just sort of stepped in and said, you know what, I think everybody was just trying to help, and what's best is maybe if everybody just takes a deep breath, because we've now got 8 screaming children and people freaking out. So what's the outcome? Well, that child had her hand stuck in the door for probably about 2 minutes longer than she needed to because of all of the craziness going on. But, ultimately a kid's hand got stuck in the door, and they got it out, and she got an ice pack. But what what drove the outcome and the hysteria, we could say had to do with her hand being stuck in the door. But what I think is really, it's the response to the event that drove the outcome. Okay. What I mean by that is really the event had very little to do with it. The response being total hysteria from the grown-ups in the room is what drove the outcome of the hysteria for this child and all of the other kids in the room. What would have happened if that mother, as we call it, an emotional stress response, for anybody who's tuned in, who's just finished Master Practitioner with us, we talk about our stress responses, and some people have very associated stress response, meaning like they're in their feelings while they're responding, while others are a little bit more dissociated. And I think in this case, more of a dissociated, logical approach to what was happening could have, I'm sure the little girl was she scared herself, for sure. But had there been a little bit more responsibility from, the mother involved or the other people in the room who jumped up freaking out, then we could have seen a completely different, a child's hand got stuck in the door, they open the door, she gets a big hug and an ice pack, and, we talk about how happy it is that, it wasn't more serious, versus a whole bunch of grown-ups screaming at each other with their children in tow, crying beside them. So we think the event drives the outcome, but really, truly, it's our responses to the events that drive the outcome 99% of the time. So, so events don't drive outcomes, our responses do. Okay, so this leads me into talking about responsibility. I can't even spell responsibility properly anymore. I'm so used to hyphenating responsibility. So what does this say? This says, what's my ability to respond to the current set of circumstances? So things can be going beautifully and wonderfully and happily, or things can be kind of sucky and not so good. It could be circumstances at home. It could be circumstances in relationship. It could be circumstances in our career or finances, or things that are, really completely out of our control. Remember, the events are not always in our control. Events are going to happen, but how we choose to respond to the event is going to make a significant impact on how we live our lives. So all of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about today have to do with us taking responsibility for our communication, responsibility for the things that are going on in our lives, as well as responsibility for conflicts or for the interactions and relationships that we have with other people. My personal belief is that when we do take total responsibility, radical responsibility even, for everything going on in our lives, we experience more peace, more calm. And that's not to say that things don't still happen. They do, but we can find our own center of peace within it and have a much more easy approach to how we deal with everything. So responsibility, I have a couple of questions here. How do we take responsibility? We just ask ourselves, what's my ability to respond to this situation or this circumstance? Or how can I take responsibility? How can I respond differently? So the first kind of big concept that I want to lead into is this Nlp Communication Model. And I know for some people who are tuning in, you may have seen this before. If you've done any work with Kathleen, I'm sure that you have. And if you've come to AYP, which is an Awaken Your Potential weekend with us, or any of the professional trainings, you would have seen it. But this is worth reviewing because well, you'll see how much information we delete and distort and generalize. I think I did the math once, and you would have to see this model approximately 18,000 times, said the exact same way before you actually collected all of the information coming in. So the NLP Communication Model, I'm going to put on screen here. We have an event. The event I have on screen is a picture of a beautiful sunrise. Now, if this is Rob and I looking at the sunrise, we would have two different internal representations of that sunrise or sunset. Even if, if we were both given a blank canvas and some paints and told to paint the exact same image, we would come out with two different pictures. And how we communicate is exactly the same. So an event happens and we bring it in through our five senses. That's what the VACOG is on the screen. Our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, our five senses, right? We bring this information in, and information is coming into us at 2 million bits per second. Like 2 million bits of information every single second coming in. 2 million bits. Do you think you can consciously attend to 2 million bits of information a second? Of course not. So what happens? What happens to all of this information coming in? Well, in order to process it, we need to delete some information. So we literally will miss complete chunks of information that aren't important to us. And I'll explain what our system says is important in a moment. We also distort information and we generalize it. So we bring it into big groups or generalizations. Once we've deleted, distorted, and generalized, we break down 2 million bits into 134 bits of information. So 2 million down to 134, and then even, 134, we always use the metaphor of the toothpicks. Could I hold 134 toothpicks in my hand? Sure I could. But can I grasp 134 every single second? No, probably not. So we take that 134 bits and we group it into 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information, what we call chunks. I'll say marketers know this, advertisers know this. I spent years in marketing and advertising before I actually got into this business. And this is why, for those of you familiar with that world, why people, the big companies want to be in the top 5 to 7 in terms of unaided recall. Meaning if I said to any one of you, think of, hey, name all of the chocolate bars you can think of off the top of your head, you'd probably be able to come up with 7 plus or minus 2 brands of chocolate bar before you needed some kind of trigger or something to bring up the rest. So 2 million bits down to 7 plus or minus 2 chunks every single second. Do you think you might have missed something? So what do we do with all of this information that we're deleting, distorting, and generalizing? Well, it runs through filters in our system, and the filters are things like our language. Language can include the spoken word. It can include body language, which is huge when we're perceiving what somebody's saying to us. Body language, as well as any nonverbal communication that's happening. We filter through some meta programs, which in NLP at the master practitioner level, we work with 19 different meta programs. They're the most unconscious of our unconscious drivers. So we filter through all of those. We filter through our values. We have values in every area of our life. What's important to you about work? What's important to you about relationship? What's important to you about finances? And where have those values come from? Where were they formed? And are they all working for you right now? So many times values are formed in our families and culturally and through religion, school, peer groups. And we look at the kids these days. They've got media forming all kinds of their values, and how many of those are healthy values that you want to keep and how many of those need to be worked on. We filter through memories and beliefs. Now, my memories and Rob's memories are going to be a completely different set of memories. And what kind of belief systems have we attached to memories? So take an example of somebody who grew up in a lower income environment, or, say somebody who's growing up just above the poverty line. Their memory is attached to certain events are going to be completely different than somebody who's brought up in a very wealthy household. Therefore, they may have completely different internal representations and filters running when it comes to giving, to receiving, to thoughts about abundance and scarcity. Conversely, somebody could have grown up in a very wealthy household but still had scarcity mindset going on. So we can't make any broad generalizations other than to say that we are all filtering every piece of information that comes through, and we're filtering it through our own filters. So every time somebody's speaking to me, what they're saying comes in and comes through my system and goes through my filters. I delete, I distort, and I generalize based on my values, my memories, my belief systems. And what comes out for each and every one of us is an internal representation. Okay, it's a picture in our head, and that picture in your head is mostly unconscious. We don't always know what those pictures are until we do some work to investigate it. But what we are aware of is our state, meaning our emotional state. Because the picture in your head drives your emotional state. Your emotional state mixes with your body and it creates your physiology. So Anytime, you know, you're feeling angry, that's affecting your body. It also drives our behavior. And it drives behavior through strategies, which is a big part of what we talk about. So how does this tie to responsibility? Well, this says that my behavior and my physical health and my emotions are driven by the picture in my head, and the picture in my head comes from how I've filtered information that was given to me, or how I've filtered information that's come into me, rather. So this is where I need to take complete responsibility for my communication, because when you're deleting and distorting and generalizing that much, how do you know what somebody meant when they said something to you? Think about the last time that you got offended. Think about the last time that you questioned whether or not somebody was saying something offensive, or perhaps you felt like somebody was blaming or putting unfair responsibility. And so often we process this information, put the picture in our head, and then have a conversation in our head with another person instead of having the conversation out loud and actually asking for clarification. So responsibility in communication means, I need to ask clarification. What did you mean when you said that? You know, the example, we always tease Ernie, my partner, my business partner at Avalon Empowerment, we tease him about his haircut, right? So some of you have heard the nice haircut Ernie story. I use nice outfit, Laura. Now I know you can't see the outfit that I'm wearing today because we're on screen, but if you were to say nice outfit, Laura, that's only 3 words. But I could filter that through insecurity. I could filter that through beliefs that I'm not enough. I could filter that through comparison, and I could be kind of offended and be like, are you making fun of my outfit? Or I could process that through much cleaner filters and just have a basic thank you. We see this happen if there's a car accident, an officer needs to interview 9 witnesses of an accident or 9 witnesses of any kind of event. Rob, I'm sure you have lots of experience with this, right? But you're going to get 9 different interpretations of what happened because you have 9 people filtering those external circumstances through this. My favorite example is the family wedding. When you go to a wedding, especially when there's alcohol involved and you're sitting around a table and if that table has 10 people at it, you could walk away from it and one person is saying, oh my God, Uncle Bob, he's such a hoot. I love that guy. He's hilarious. And somebody else could be saying, oh my God, Uncle Bob, what a jerk. That guy is super offensive. I can't believe that, you know, he was even invited. He does this every time. So we need to take responsibility for what's not just what we communicate, but what's being communicated to us. Because let's face it, not everybody knows this. I think this is a game changer concept and not everybody knows it. But now that you do, it's just about saying, what did you mean when you said that? This is how I perceived it. And also about taking responsibility for our filters. Just because I have the memories that I have and the belief systems were what they were doesn't mean I need to hang on to those belief systems. And, you know, I'm 39 years old. At 39, I'm able to say, when I have the awareness of a belief that I'm running, like, wow, is that belief serving me now? Or do I need to take responsibility for it and clean it up? And in my world, I do that with the tools of NLP, with quantum change process or timeline therapy, or, you know, any of these different things. It's just sometimes awareness alone is enough when it's not something major. But then there's other things where it's like, wow, I'm really hanging on to values and belief systems that aren't serving me, aren't serving my path and where I want to go. So how do I take responsibility for those? And that's really, I love this, we call this a frame. I love this communication model frame because in a nutshell, it explains everything that we do as coaches and trainers at Avalon Empowerment and in the leadership and empowerment industry, because we're helping people work with those filters so that the behaviors, emotional states, physical manifestation of things is exactly as we want it. So the big piece to remember here is just how can I take responsibility for what I say, for what people say to me, and for the filters that I'm processing everything through. And I'm going to move on to our next big concept. This is one of our favorites. This is what you see on the screen is C is greater than E. Okay? That means cause is greater than effect. This is the one we always say at the Awaken Your Potential program. If you're going to take one concept and walk away with it, take this one. And then I say that about the next 3 concepts that come up because we have lots of favorites. But this is definitely one of the big ones. I think when Rob and I were talking, Rob, you mentioned that this is one that you're teaching to everybody that you meet, whether they're your clients or family and friends. This is a really big one.
It is.
So,
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So cause is greater than effect. C is greater than E. This says cause is greater than effect. So what does this mean? This means that at any given time, you are either in cause or you're in effect. At any time, you're either in cause or you're in effect. Now, people who are in cause are going to sound something like this. I take complete responsibility for what's going on in my life, the good, the bad, the ugly. I accept that at some level, consciously or unconsciously, I've created it, or there's something for me to learn here. There's something that I need here. Okay, that's what being in cause sounds like. Being in effect, on the other hand, sounds like this. Well, it has nothing to do with me. If it weren't for him or her or this or that, I'd have what I want. The circumstances happening in my life are not of my creation, not my fault. It's him, it's her, it's this thing, it's that thing, but they're pushing the cause away from them, in effect. Our big question is, what side of the planet or which side of the equation do you think most of the planet is on? Of course, there's a resounding effect. Now, effect is not a happy place to be. Effect is where things are not going well. And sadly, when this is our belief, when you're in effect, the resources can't show up to help you, right? I can't manage what I'm not owning. As long as I'm putting it on someone or something else, I'm keeping it outside of me and away from me. Therefore, I can't actually do anything with it. Whereas being in cause, and of course this is this can come across as a bit of an ego kick, but if being in cause says, okay, yeah, there could be people in my life, there could be people or circumstances that are bothering me or affecting me, whether that's my health, my finances, my partner, friends, in-laws, anyone, anything. But I accept that whatever is happening, whether that's good or bad, that I've needed it for some reason. And then when I own it, I can actually manage it and work with it. So how do you know at any given time that you're in cause or you're in effect? These are some of the keys right here. People at cause have results in their life. If you're in cause, you're getting results in your life. There's results for your effort. Whereas in effect, there's not results, but there's a whole lot of reasons for why those results don't show up. This is really a results versus reasons equation. People in cause have peace in their life. Again, it's not that there aren't circumstances going on that could cause some stress, but people in cause can find their place of peace and be in their center with all of that going on. Whereas in effect, there's no peace. That, boy, can there be a whole lot of drama. There can be lots and lots of drama. So if you've got drama going on in your life, that would be a big indicator that you're in effect. We also say that drama is a way of doing trauma. It's acting out things that need to get resolved. People in cause are in a spirit of creation. They're working on something new. Now, creation could be, artistic in nature. It could be, traditional arts. But when we talk about creation, we're really just talking about a newness, like creating something new. We believe that we're all here to create something, to become aware of something, to heal something, and to create from that place. And people in cause are in that spirit of creation. There's newness. There's new life happening. Now, in effect, there's no creation. In contrast to creation, there's just a whole lot of repetition. A lot of the same thing cycling over and over and over again. It sounds like this. I can't believe this happened to me again. Or, the people who are saying, why does this always happen to me? Why do I attract all of the jerks? Why do I attract all of the arseholes? That's repetition. So if you've got repetition, again, that's a surefire way to know that you're in effect. And perhaps one of the biggest ways to be able to, one of the biggest indicators of being in effect is if there's blaming, complaining, justifying, or feeling sorry for yourself. If any one of those 4 things is going on, then you're in effect. So I'll take a break now so that we can all breathe, because of course we're all in human bodies and we're going to be in effect from time to time. We're human beings. Also, when we talk about blame, being in cause does not mean shifting from blame for others to blame for self. If I'm blaming myself, I'm still in effect. This is just about taking responsibility and saying, okay, what happened, happened, and I needed it. However it happened that way because I needed it to happen that way. I don't need to know why yet. We rarely know why moving forwards. Say hindsight's 2020, but as you're in a situation, it's really hard to figure out the why of it. But being able to say, I accept that I'm not sure why this is happening. I'm not sure why it happened the way that it did, but I'm choosing to respond differently as of now. I'm choosing to be in cause is one of, this is the definition of empowerment. This is the most empowering thing that you can do for yourself and the most empowering thing that you can teach your loved ones, especially children and partners, and be able to play this out this way. Because once you move yourself into cause, that's when the resources show up. That's when the help shows up. And it can show up in the form of a book, in the form of an episode on Oprah. It can show up in the form of a fantastic post and Rob Martell doing corporate suit. Maybe the answers will be there. It could be, we joke, the right weekend program will show up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But once you move into cause, you can drop 25 to 30 problems in your life just like that. And, I'm not, I can't give you a guarantee or I can't guarantee that this is absolutely true. What I can tell you is that if you talk to any of the people who live this way, they'll tell you it's true. And I know for myself that when I'm, 99 years old, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back at my life, I'm going to feel far better about the fact that I chose to take responsibility and do what I could versus all of that blame and all of the reasons are not going to be very rewarding later on. So cause and effect and moving into cause.
Laura, I think it's important to note too that we have so many avenues in our life. So I can be in cause in my romantic life and spiritual life, but I might still be in effect in my workplace or whatever it may be. That there is that part too, where we could be in cause in so many parts, but just that one effect might have a large grasp on
Absolutely. We always say to people, even if it's, let's use relationship as an example. If I say, well, I'm in cause 90% in relationship, or even if I'm in cause 99% in relationship, that 1%, that 10% where I'm caught up in blame, in drama, in reasons, that little tiny piece will take you out. So it's important to know, one of the exercises at the Awaken Your Potential weekend on this topic, we sit down and write down which areas of your life do you believe you're in cause in, and which areas of your life are you in effect in? Who are you doing that dance with? And what do you need to do to change? And taking some time to actually reflect on that. And where am I in cause and where am I in effect? And then how quickly can I move out of effect and back into cause? And there's so many ways to do that, as you know, Rob. But yeah, that's a great point to make, that we can be totally in cause in career and totally in effect in relationship. And again, we're human beings, this is normal. And sometimes you need to have the pity party. I think the other big piece on cause and effect is recognizing that when you're on the path to choose to be an empowered human being, and when you're, really showing up as a leader in the world, recognizing that there's a lot of people who are quite happy to be in effect with you. So I'm personally very, very selective about who I choose to share my struggles with, because I know that there's certain people that I can call and they'll allow me to feel sorry for myself, because we're human beings and sometimes we need to. Sometimes things suck. I wouldn't even call that feeling sorry for yourself. I think that's just having a healthy attitude towards negative emotions. You know, healthy, balanced people experience all emotions, but these are also the people who are going to say very quickly, okay, so what does this have to do with you? What needs to change? How can you take responsibility? Versus, you know, the joke is always Starbucks, like calling the girlfriend to show up at Starbucks and sit down and complain about, you know, like that, our whole partner over and over and over again, and all, you know, sit down and say, oh gosh, poor you, and he's this and he's that. And that's not the kind of relationships that are going to keep you empowered in the long run. I certainly have lots of different types of relationships in my life, but there's also people that I know that are in effect in their own lives who are going to, you know, help me stay entrenched in it in my life too. So you have to be very careful with who you choose to share with once you know what you didn't know. For me, I choose to share with people who are going to keep me accountable and keep me responsible. So I recommend the same for everybody else too. All right. This is just to close off this segment. This is a quote from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He said, when you think everything is someone else's fault, you will suffer a lot. When you realize that everything springs only from yourself, you will learn both peace and joy. I love that. Okay, and the next, this is one of my absolute favorite concepts to talk about. This is perception as projection. Carl Jung, Swiss psychologist, came up with perception as projection. I know many people, if you've been in this world, you're a little bit familiar with it. This is something that is, you know, I'd call it an installed behavior for me at this point. I play this with everyone and everything. I'll start off just with a few quotes by Carl Jung that are on the screen here, because we love these. The information which is most unconscious in us, we by need must project onto someone around us, people and events around us. So remembering, for anybody who is completely new to us or new to Core Pursuit or Kathleen's coaching, you have your conscious mind and then you have your unconscious mind. At any given time, we're only 10% working out of our conscious minds. The rest of us is unconscious. Your unconscious mind is a holographic library of everything that's ever happened in your life, everything you've ever said, everything that was ever said to you. So the majority of our memories and our beliefs and our values is all completely unconscious. And sorry guys, that's just my phone ringing in the background. I'll stop in a minute. But so when he talks about the information which is most unconscious in us, remember, if it was conscious, you'd know it. We wouldn't need to have perception as projection if we were walking around 100% conscious all of the time. Our unconscious minds are what's creating our lives. It's, you know, 10% versus 90%. What do you think is going to win? So because we're unconscious about it, we need to project it out. So if I'm doing something with Rob, I need to have Rob as a mirror to me because I'm so much of the time I spend unconscious. Carl Jung also said projections change the world into the replica of one's unknown face. Probably one of our favorites is everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Everything. So everything that irritates us about somebody else, when I'm playing perception as projection, I'm saying, okay, but what does that have to do with me? Because I can understand myself better by being in this situation. We tend to marry our unconscious minds and then project out onto her all of our unresolved stuff. That's a huge one because we play perception as projection in our closest relationships, predominantly in our closest relationships. So spouses, partners, children, pets are all representations of your own unconscious mind. And then Carl Jung, your vision will only become clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Okay? So perception as projection. What I want you to see here is that everything that you see in anybody else, anything that I see in anybody else, can only exist in me too. I wouldn't be able to name it, right? If you can name it, you've got it. So what I see in Rob, what I see in my partner is a mirror of who I believe I am. Now, this goes for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this means if I look at Rob and say, oh my gosh, Rob Martel, I'm so grateful to know you because I think that you are a magnificent, wonderful, like splendid human being. You're courageous, you're authentic, and you just emanate this power, which, by the way, Rob, I totally believe about you. I can only say that because I know that those qualities exist somewhere in me too. Having said that, if I'm looking at somebody else, maybe this is a old friend or a neighbor or an ex or a partner or somebody that I'm in conflict with in my life, and I'm saying, wow, that person, we'll use Larry the liar as an example, right? Let's say I work in an office. I don't, so this is a really safe one to use. But if I work in an office building and I have an issue with Larry the liar because, man, that guy, he is just he's full of it. And I know that every day at that water cooler, Larry is, talking smack about everything. And it drives me nuts, right? Now that's the key, is it drives me nuts. Because if I know that Larry's a liar and I go home at night and by the time I'm in my car driving home from work and I'm not thinking about it, then okay, no biggie. But if I go home and on my drive home, I'm thinking about Larry and his lying, and if I get in and I sit down at the dinner table and, my husband asks me how was work today, and I'm like, yeah, it was good, but man, that guy Larry. And if I'm just constantly playing out what Larry says or what Larry does, especially if it's keeping you up at night, then I need to say, okay, this has something to do with me. Now, perception as projection can work as an exact mirror. It could be that I'm annoyed that Larry's lying because I'm a big liar. Maybe I'm not a liar at work, but am I lying to my partner? Or is there any area of my life where I am lying? I could look at it that way and say, okay, what does this have to do with me? Yeah, well, to be honest, I haven't been completely honest in this part of my life. And there's the projection. I got what I needed to get from it. But if I look at it, because sometimes it's not always an exact mirror, sometimes it's not always a direct reflection. So if I look at it and say, yeah, but I'm a pretty honest person, and honesty is a real value of mine that I know I live in all of my most important relationships. And if I look at it that way, then I say, okay, well, so if I'm not lying to other people, am I lying to myself? Is there something I'm not being honest with myself about? Is there a situation or a circumstance that I have been in denial on? And if I get an answer there, then okay, that clears it for me. And, and if that's not going to work, then maybe it's about, well, I sit here and I listen to Larry lie, and I know it's hurting me and I know it's hurting other people, and I don't say anything. And if I look at my history and my own patterns and say, well, one of the things that I dislike the most about myself is that I have poor boundaries. I don't say anything. I don't call it out when it would be appropriate to call it out. Then maybe it's a boundary issue for me. Maybe the projection is I needed this to happen so that I could learn how to put boundaries in place in life, because I suck at boundaries. And finally, one of the best ways to play this, I think, is to be able to look at that situation and those people who really get under your skin and say, okay, so Larry does this and this and that and this and this. And when he does that, that makes me feel, and then write down the words that it makes you feel. And that could be, it makes me feel small. It makes me feel insignificant. It makes me feel like I can't speak up. And these are just examples, but if I look at that and say, well, who else in my life has made me feel that way? Then I might get a huge nugget. That could be, oh my God, my father or my grade 2 teacher made me feel that way. And all of a sudden I have this golden nugget of a piece of my history that I was previously unconscious about. And now with the awareness, I can take responsibility for it and clean it up. I can deal with that memory. I can choose forgiveness. I can choose understanding. I can choose to learn how to set boundaries. I can learn that it was a lie that I felt small and insignificant and like I had no voice, and I can get a coach and learn how to start speaking up. So, my joke on this one is all of those arseholes out there are really there to serve you. And instead of staying mad and staying in blame and staying in effect over it, we need to be saying thank you. Now, I say that jokingly because I don't think that everybody should go walking around to all of the arseholes in their life and start thanking them, but you can certainly be thankful for the experience. Now, the magic of perception as projection is that once you have the awareness around it, and once you choose to take responsibility and have a different response to that situation, and recognizing that oftentimes we can do that on our own and oftentimes we can't, and we need some help and we need some coaching and we need some new skills and new strategies. But once you do that, once you actually take the action to change what it has to do with you, then one of two things happens. Either somehow magically, because everything is energy, the other person changes their behavior. Why? Well, because they don't need to get under your skin that way anymore. You got what you needed to get from it. So then the unconscious need was fulfilled. The other person can change, and sometimes they do. Or they don't change because there's something for them to learn in this situation too. They don't change, but it's not keeping you up at night anymore. You get to go home and go to sleep and just enjoy your time with your family, and you've learned all of this new stuff. So the key question on perception is projection. And I would encourage anybody who's watching or listening to think of the person, think of the person in your life that's keeping you up at night, thinking about them, or the person or situation that is really getting under your skin, and make a list, and just make a list of, these are the qualities and these are the traits that I dislike the most. This is the stuff that really gets to me, and make a list of it, and then look at it and say, what does this have to do with me? Right? Just by saying, what does this have to do with me? You can then look at the list and say, yeah, okay, either I am this way, or, I've seen this so often with people who say, well, I don't like that person because they're just so arrogant. They're just so arrogant. And then asking the person, well, could you be a little bit more arrogant? Or perhaps do you shrink under this guise of humility? And then they go, okay, yeah, I get it. It bothers me because it's an extreme reflection, but I'm somebody who, needs to speak up a little bit more. I'm somebody who needs to actually acknowledge my own worth and value. Because really, what is somebody who's arrogant other than someone who acknowledges who they are and makes sure everybody knows it? Sometimes you can clear that projection just by acknowledging some of what you need to do. And you just make a list of those traits and say, who was the first person that made me feel this way? What is it that this has to do with me? And how can I take responsibility to clear all of that up and clear the projection? So this is another one that's a total game changer. We're doing all of the big concepts today because this one's a big game changer. And you can, if you play with the big people in your life, then you'll find that the people who are sort of like the irritations or the stuff that used to get to you, you can clear it all up just like that, just by playing with perception as projection. So, Rob, is there anything else that you want to add to that? I know that this is some of your favorite material too from...
Yeah, perception as projection, I do constantly. I feel a lot of times when people end up in a fact and they're struggling, when you ask them who they are, like, what is your identity? Who are you? Mm-hmm. You'd be astounded at the amount of people that can't give you that answer. They're not sure, or they've changed. They went through something. So I always go through this perception as projection, because I feel when you start to answer all of those little things that you can knock off the checklist, really deep down, it starts to develop who you are, who your identity is, and who you are becoming, I guess. So It's a big one for me. I think it really opens that door fully and allows you to kind of just be at peace, I think, and get into effect and be a lot happier.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, really just to kind of like summarize, I think what we're saying today in general is that it's not the other people in our lives. It's not the events or circumstances happening in our lives or in the world. Because we can take responsibility for that too and say, you know, like the world is the way that it is, but how can I choose to make a difference? And how can I, you know, shed some light on things that are happening? So it's not when we displace that responsibility to world events or family or career or finances or anything, we really are in a helpless place. And that the most empowering thing that you can do for yourself is to take responsibility and say, what's my ability to respond to the events, right? That's cause and effect. To the people, perception is projection. And to everything that's going on, because our response determines the outcome every single time. Oh.
Agreed.
So just, I guess before we close off, can I'll bring up just the Awaken Your Potential. This is, Rob spoke about it at the beginning of our session. This is the weekend program that I facilitate along with my business partner, Ernie Pavan, our company Avalon Empowerment. We're really happy to be affiliated with Kathleen Black Coaching and Consulting and Core Pursuit. We've had quite a few now of Kathleen's coaching clients and affiliates and people come through the programs, and we absolutely love just the caliber of humans being that are showing up. So the Awaken Your Potential Weekend is a 2-day introduction. It covers off some of the stuff that we talked about today, as well as a whole bunch more. It's an introduction to how to use the tools of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, creating your future processes, and even hypnosis, which truly is the language of business and sales, in the most empowering way to create leaders and help lead other people, and ultimately to create change in the world, because we really do believe that empowered individuals can be in empowered relationships, and empowered relationships create empowered families, and empowered people show up in empowered workplaces and empower others. And it's that the best thing that you can do for yourself or your clients, your colleagues, and your families and society and the world in general is the gift of your own personal empowerment and transformation. That's what the weekend is all about. It's an introduction to our professional NLP certification trainings, as well as a standalone weekend for people who just want to hit a reset button or get their mindset back on track. So we have some really great feedback coming back from it. I'm certainly happy to answer any more questions. I'm sure Rob is too. We have dates booked right up till the end of the year, and our next one is June 24th and 25th. That's coming up soon. After that, we'll be taking July and August off, but we're back in September 9th and 10th, or October 21st and 22nd. And the investment for the weekend is just $247 plus HST. And you can register right on Kathleen's, the KathleenSpeaks.com website. There is online registration there. So, Rob, anything else?
No, thank you, Laura. And I would strongly suggest we're going into that busy time of the year this summer. So I can say that I've attended the event and it's incredible. So get there before the summer. So you're nice and relaxed and eager to go before the busy time comes in. But Laura, I want to say thank you very much. It was incredible. I always enjoy so very much listening to you speak and speak about these concepts that are so very important to me as well. So thanks for joining us. I know that the listeners...
Well, thank you so much.
All right, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect with you guys.
Awesome.
Okay,
thanks. Bye.
Bye.